Hello and welcome back to Coast FC, the Canadian soccer podcast focused on all things CPL, Canadian Championship, and more. My name is Felipe and
I'm Mike Rice.
And today we are talking about week 1
We are
in season 7 of the CPL. We are back, baby, and it feels better than ever. 7 heaven for the CPL, and boy, did we start with a bang in week 1. There was a lot of goals. There was a couple red cards, a lot of contentious moments, a lot of drama, and we're going to get into all of it. But before we do, remember to follow us on all of our socials at Coast FC, so you can find all of our work, as well as finding us on YouTube under the same name. Now, Mike, let's just dive into it. Home opener for Atletico Ottawa, season opener for the CPL. Ottawa against Halifax. And it did not disappoint that match. It did 2-2. Ottawa finished with 10 men. So there's plenty of goals, plenty of drama, and a lot to take from this. First, let's talk about Halifax. Because Halifax came into this match wanting to break the curse of being unable to get that opening day win since 2022, to break the curse of not winning a game in the first several rounds of the league since Patrice Geiser's come into the team. And for the first hour, it looked like they were going to finally do it. They were playing some scintillating football. It really looked like Halifax were starting to find their groove. Sean Rea looked back to his very best. And then it all went wrong. But let's talk about the good stuff first. Let's talk about the good stuff. The first hour of Halifax, what did you make of them?
Yeah, I mean, they deserved all the credit going in, like you said, in that first hour, and 2 minutes into the second half, Sean Rea's control and finish was just exquisite. It was Sean Rea back to his best, and it looked like all of a sudden everything was looking glorious for Halifax, wasn't it? You had in the opening stages of the game, Ryan Yesley steps up with a huge save early on, and from then on, they just looked the most dangerous of the two sides. Ottawa looked like a team who were getting used to a new system, and they were getting used to a new way of playing. But Halifax looked like, right, okay, we know what we are, we know what we want to be, and we're going for it. And it was new players in there, but Bahambula and players like that looked exciting. The speed that they could attack at was it just got you off the edge of your seat. And from that beginning, that first half, despite it being just the one goal, and I think watching that, it was just, I don't know about you, but it was fantastic. It's the game's back, we've got the leagues back, and we've got our entertainment straight away.
No, exactly. It really felt like it was high octane from the first whistle, and you really couldn't take your eyes off of the match. Both teams were up for it. The Wanderers did look like the better side at the start, but sort of expected, like you mentioned. Ottawa have a new coach, a new system. They're figuring stuff out. There were flashes within the first hour as well. That looked pretty good. Balou Tabla looked dangerous as usual. David Rodriguez, who we'll talk about later, started to gain some steam in that first opening half. But Ottawa just were struggling to deal with that kind of Wanderers pressure. And I think it really came down to, the way that the front sort of four were rotating, because you saw that, we kind of went back to a back three for Patrice Geiser, and there were a little bit of struggle, question marks about that, but it looked good at the start. And it really allowed the midfield to be able to be expansive. And I think what they struggled with last year is that they really didn't know how to get it into the attack. They were kind of stuck in the midfield. But with players like Bahambula and Sean Rea kind of in the center at the 10, they were able to kind of distribute the ball more. And it felt a lot more fluid. It felt a lot more like the Halifax that we saw a couple of years ago under Patrice Geiser, and I was thoroughly impressed.
Did you find sorry, like going on from what you're saying about the back three, like, yeah, we trashed it last year, and quite rightly, I think most did, and probably Patrice guys did at times. But it almost didn't look. It wasn't rigid. Like, it wasn't just, this is a back three, these are our wing backs, and everyone else has to play in this area. There was so much more movement, and like the wide forwards were wide. It wasn't like they were just in it, but they weren't getting in the way of wing backs. There seems to be a better understanding of where everyone should be, which wasn't there at the beginning of last year.
Yeah, I agree. There was a more evident understanding of what the roles were and what the rotations were supposed to look like, and that's what I mean. The movement from the team was really, really impressive because it was something that we didn't really get to see all that much last year. And we used the word fluid a lot with Halifax, but it generally was fluid with them because everyone was occupying the spaces that they needed to. When they were rotating, they didn't leave any space behind it and get into each other's spaces. I thought the defense really provided that really good foundation. I was really impressed by Adam Perlman. He came in from the TFC2 Academy and didn't look out of place at all. Looked like a seasoned professional in the
Yeah,
back three alongside TMG and even Kareem Sow as well, who's a youngster. Like, I was very impressed with the back three, the maturity that they showed in that opening hour. I felt like that is the foundation, that's the basis that Halifax can succeed off of, because
yeah.
it's so impressive, and they were being able to deal with everything that Ottawa was throwing at them, and I was surprised, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, you rightly bring up Perlman there. Like, defensively was really good, but the way they adapted, and you talk about how fluid they were. All of a sudden, he's playing centre back, but at times he's almost playing like a right wing back. And as things move and players move around, like, and the whole system shifts depending on where they're attacking and their style of attack. I mean, he was working as a right wing back and as a centre back, and depending on what was in front of him, and the whole team's seemed to have that down. I don't want to I don't want to throw an entire load of praise on the first game, and we'll see. Like, this is the opening game, but the way that it was set up, and I mean, we'll talk about the last half hour as well, but it's there was a lot to enjoy in that first half of how well they appeared to know each other's roles.
Yeah, and honestly, it should have been more for Halifax in that first hour. 2-0 is great, but you look at Bahambula in the opening minutes, that free header at the near post.
Yeah,
you kind of feel, again, it's the opening minutes of a brand new season. Give the guy a break. But at the same time, now, after learning what the final results is, it's those moments you look back on and kind of think, what if? And I think there's where Halifax need to be a little bit better. You look at the top teams, Cavalry and Forge. Those teams have players that are difference makers because they're clinical. And Bahambula, I really liked a lot of what I saw from him. He was exactly the kind of profile that I expected him to be, that we talked about when we were previewing Halifax. He just needs to, and it will come with time, and as he settles and everything, this is not a bash on him. He just needs to kind of sharpen up his shooting a bit, and I think he'll be a very worthy addition for Halifax moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. It just looks like that final ball is it showed that it's his first game. Like, so yeah, hopefully we'll see for them and for him, obviously, like, continual improvement on that.
Exactly. But then came the pivotal moment for Ottawa and for Halifax in this match. And it wasn't a goal necessarily. It's what came before the goals. And that was a substitution. And that was Manny Aparicio coming in for Ottawa. That made all the difference for Ottawa. And it was quite apparent as soon as he came on to the pitch that he was going to be that spark that Ottawa needed. Because you have to remember, Ottawa started the match with a bunch of players not starting, star players not starting. They didn't have Amir Didic in the lineup.
No.
They didn't have Manny Aparicio in the lineup. So, of course, without some of these, key players in your team, you're not going to be able to be firing on all cylinders in the way that you would if you had them in the actual lineup. That's when, as soon as Aparicio came in, you felt, this is why he's such an important player for Ottawa, because he just had so much energy. He was
That's the word.
relentless.
Yeah.
He was pressing and never gave up. He could have ran that whole pitch. He could have played 3 games straight and would have never stopped running. And it was that literally lifted the team. It felt like he grabbed Ottawa by the shoulders, by the scruff of the neck, and said, "We're not out yet." And
Yeah.
then it led to a spectacular comeback. But I just really want to put praise on Aparicio, because I mean, we were
Definitely.
texting as well during the game that he was that was it. That was the difference.
It was a new team, wasn't it? As soon as he came on, it almost felt like there was a little Manny Aparicio behind every Ottawa player pushing them to go harder, just with his sheer work rate. And I don't want to throw criticism at Verhoeven and Zapatero unnecessarily, but they don't have the energy that Aparicio has. For the qualities they've got, and Zapatero, the history he's got in this game, and don't mean to make anything. It's not a derogatory comment to say that Aparicio's got energy far beyond what they can bring into a game at this moment. And yeah, as soon as he got on that pitch, it just lifted the entire team.
Yeah, and that's what star players do. That's why they get paid.
That's why you get them.
Exactly. That's why you get them. And you could even say, like, for Halifax opening goal, Giorgio Provo was in acres of space in the box when that cross came in. And
it was a
think,
pressing. They pressed them because Ottawa were too slow in their build up, like the movement.
But you would think that if an Amir Didic, no disrespect to Cloutier, but if Amir Didic was there, I don't think that goal would have happened. I don't think he would have allowed, Provo to have that much space. I think he would be there covering, or it would be in a different sort of scenario had, the big center back being in the back line. And that goes to show, that goes to show the quality that Ottawa have. And also, I guess it kind of shows where the rest of the players kind of need to step up to, because you can't always rely on Aparicio and Didic to always be there 100% of the time. You need players that can be able to step up to the plate if they don't get it. I mean, it's fantastic when they do. It's fantastic when Aparicio can come on, change the game, and bring you back into it. But if he's more injured and he can't do that, or if he's suspended, or if he's out for a while, you need to find other players that are able to do that. I think that's something that Ottawa and Mejia will be looking to kind of demand of from the rest of his players. One player that he won't have to demand much of more is David Rodriguez. Because as soon as Aparicio came on and gave that spark, Rodriguez took that spark and made it into flame. He was spectacular in that last half hour, starting with his goal. I just felt like with so many other players, they'll rush that. When the ball bubbles in front of you, or you're right in front of goal, they sometimes they panic, just fire, and it'll smash against the keeper's hand, wrist, or face, and then you lose a chance. But the composure that he has to just take very minute touches, just to like eke it away from the keeper and the players, and then just like barely touch it to roll it in. It's that kind of finesse that makes him such a fantastic player already for Ottawa. And he was showing that throughout the match as well. We were talking about flashes in the first half. After Aparicio came on the last half an hour or so, he was really turning that up. He was, turning defenders inside out just with those clever touches, cutting inside or cutting outside. And it just, as soon as he got the ball, it felt like every time I was expecting something great from him. And most of the time, he delivered.
Yeah, there's players you'll get where they've obviously got quality on the ball, but they're not as direct and driven, and you'll see it. And then there's players you can enjoy, like I don't want to name anyone just in case it feels like I'm having a go at them, but they'll do something and it'll be like, oh, that's great fun, but it's not doing anything. It's just great fun to watch. Whereas David Rodriguez straight away looked like, well, okay, I've got the ball and I'm trying to get a goal. Like every time I'm trying to get my team a goal, whether it's individually or I'm creating space and I'm going at players to then set someone up. It looked direct. It looks like he had so much control, and it just looked like he'd been playing in this league for a while. Like he knew the player, he knew the quality he was going up against, and knew that he was able to go past it. It just seemed something that was just so innate. That it was the way he was playing just seemed so casual almost. But like it's like, I'm going at you, I'm going to probably beat you, and then I'm going to see what I can do after that.
Yeah, and it's just the way that he drives at them, that he goes with no fear, and he acts not. He doesn't think about what he's going to do. He just decides what he's doing, and he does it.
Yeah,
and I think
this is the
agility that he has. He's able to do that with the the talent and the skill that he has to be able to do it so deftly. Makes him such an exciting player.
I get the impression Mahir's just told him, like, obviously you see a player like that and he's obviously brought him for a reason. It's like, worst case, you get a free kick. Otherwise, you're going past them.
Exactly. Like, you'll be able to get past them. It's just whether, you'll be able to get past, like the ball will get past them, is whether you will be able to get past them. So I think
he looks fun though. So fun, doesn't
he? Yeah, he looks, I'm very excited to see how he does and continues in this league and with Ottawa moving forward. Then they got the second goal not too long later. It was a messy one, not as nice as the first one. I will definitely say Abubakar Sissoko getting the last touch. But again, it's Ottawa with that renewed energy, really starting to push forward, starting to press, starting to be more adventurous, starting to, capitalize on that momentum. And while the goal isn't, pretty, like I mentioned, it still shows, what Ottawa's capable of when they're in that flow, when they're in that form. And I just felt so unlucky for TMG because it felt like, oh no, Dynamic's curse is now being placed onto somebody else. Because he did so well to be on the light and get his foot to the shot from Sissoko, but then it bounces up, hits his hand, and then goes in as he falls backwards. And it's so sad because it was so comedic, and immediately again made me think, "Oh God, please, not another Dynamic, and don't let it be, don't let it be TMG."
It's a curse in Halifax.
Genuinely, it's the curse in Halifax. They got more than one. Oh dear.
I guess one thing, like obviously we've moved on from the last goal, but credit to Sam Salter for the ball.
Of course.
And that gave him a little bit of confidence because he was throwing in scissor kicks to just after that. So that as ugly as that second goal was, you could see a little bit of confidence coming into that front three. I mean, Rodriguez had it from the start, but the others in there showed a little bit of confidence, knowing that once someone's there to provide the ball and someone's getting the ball in the box in dangerous situations, then we could see something from this team going forward.
Yeah. And I think what they need to ensure is that they keep level heads and they understand what the league is like. Because as you can expect in an opening match, when it fights the opening match, we got a red card. But it wasn't for some dog show last-ditch tackle. It wasn't for fisticuffs in a giant huddle. It was because Tearwalker, already on a yellow, flicked the ball over the pitch and into the stands and got his second yellow and marching orders. It's so silly. It's so silly because you've seen it be a thing in the league. I still remember last year, Thiago Coimbra getting sent off for exactly the same thing, just lightly nudging the ball away. The referees are no nonsense about this. You cannot kick the ball away.
No.
You will get booked every time. And the fact that he did it knowing he was on a yellow, it's just so silly. It's so silly for me.
Yeah, no thought at all as to what was as to the consequences. And I did enjoy watching it on One Soccer, and they're literally saying that you can hear the referee saying, "I'm sorry, but what can I do?"
Yeah, it's the rules. It's literally the rules of the law. The players are informed of them as well. Yeah. Oh dear. Silly Walker. But luckily for Ottawa, they were able to hold on it almost was heartbreak because in the last moments, Bahambula, who missed in the early moments of the game, missed another sitter in the later moments of the game when he got the fortunate bounce in the middle of the box, had the back face to the wrong side, which I can understand. You're trying to turn around quickly so you can hit it with the right. Hits the post and unfortunately cannot get the winner. So the match ends 2-2. But it was an exciting match.
Yeah,
Really,
great
really
way to
set the
start.
stage
Yeah.
for the league and the season this year. And yeah, we got treated with that one, Mike. And I thoroughly enjoyed watching that one. And hopefully we get a lot more like that one in the weeks to come.
Definitely, yeah, great. And then, like, I mean, you can see now. I mean, looking forward for those both those sides, they've got their flaws. They could concede goals without their key players in from Ottawa. Halifax look at like they're still getting used to this system, but it's got some great flashes in it. I mean, we talk about how like which ones could go on and start getting a bit of a run of like an unbeaten run going up at the beginning of the season, but it's both sides that look so exciting yet so flawed at the same time. I don't know. It's really hard to predict. I like we've got here something like which team can hit their stride. I honestly don't know, but like both could not. Like the way they're playing, it's the way that first game opened up was it just really highlighted the heights as well as the lows of what both could be this season.
The peaks and the valleys
Yeah.
of both sides. Yeah, I agree. I think I really liked a lot from what I saw from Halifax in that match. I think the only thing that can really criticize is that, and this is something that I've seen as well personally in with the Whitecaps, is Patrice Geyser is similar to how Vanni Sartini was, where they had these kind of idealistic ways of playing football. These, they love to play this beautiful, attacking, fluid football, which is great. And of course, you strive for that.
Yeah.
But when it starts to get hairy and you feel momentum go against you, I feel like you need to be a bit more pragmatic. And that was the thing with Halifax, is that they still tried to play the same way, even though Ottawa
Emotionally,
yeah, even though Ottawa are gaining confidence and momentum. And it's those ones where you need a bit more gamemanship, in game management, start to break down the play, maybe frustrate Ottawa. It's not pretty, and I understand maybe they don't want to play pretty, but it's in those moments where it's like sometimes you don't need pretty, sometimes you need effective, because then you allow too much momentum to go into the side of your opposition, and when they have great players like Rodriguez and Aparicio, they're going to punish you, and in the end, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you say. Is that like when I think back and look at like Halifax games quite a lot, if things don't go well for them and they don't get the result they wanted, it does look like players are playing like they think football hates them and it's punishing them for something. And they're very much like, we're doing this. Why isn't it? Well, like, this is how it should be played. Like, why isn't this working?
Yeah, exactly. And I think just a touch more, pragmatism from Geyser, I think will help Halifax get a couple more points on the board this season. But we'll see. We'll see if they can maybe make it work for 90 minutes, and if they can get a win inside the first 6 match days, of the league. But now let's move on to the second game of the match day, and that was the big one, the old rivalry. Forge against Cavalry. This one was played at Hamilton Stadium, which was formerly known as Tim Hortons Field, but now it's just the Hamilton Stadium. And it was a game that I think a lot of people were worried that, Cavalry's Forge can be a fantastic game because of the rivalry, because of the quality of the players, but because they both don't want to lose. Sometimes it can be very cagey, and sometimes it can just kind of result in like a boring 0-0 draw, and that was one of my concerns, especially since we got treated to a really lovely, CPL final between them the last couple of seasons. Really exciting, really delivered. But even like the CPL final 2 seasons ago, outside of extra time, the first 90 minutes,
it was not
kind of,
moving.
yeah, kind of a snorefest. I was worried about that. Thankfully, it didn't turn that way, even though the scoreline was narrow, only a 1-0 victory for Forge. The action was there, and the reason why it was so close in the scoreline was because of the goalkeepers. They truly stole the show in this one, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, that first half, there was not a huge amount of clear-cut opportunities. I think we can really boil it down to one each. 2 big saves from either keeper that kept it out. I think it was Carducci early on makes the save. Koilelat a big save afterwards, and that. So as much as the game was exciting, they didn't have the huge amount to do, but when they stepped up, they really stepped up. And we say goalkeepers. I mean, Carducci was great throughout, but my God, that was what a performance! Because his abilities there was straight away. I mean, you looked at it last year, that team, and they have 2 good goalkeepers. They got 2 good young goalkeepers, and Koilelat they were discussing it on One Soccer, and I completely agree. Like if he did get more games, if Kalongo wasn't playing quite so much, they were trying to give him opportunities as well. There's a candidate for goalkeeper of the year. And he started off this season straight away going, "Yep, I am the real deal. Like I can do this."
Yes, he certainly did, because like you mentioned, what an absolute performance from him. I mean, there's so many moments we can talk about, but if we're really going to highlight him, we got to talk about like the biggest save, which was the Fraser aired cross to Toby Warchowski, who looked sharp this game. He looked sharp. He had that earlier chance where he basically just dribbled through like 4 or 5 Forge players, like if he was a 5'6" Argentinian right winger from Inter Miami. Instead, he's a 6 foot something German striker. He had a chance where he got the cross from Fraser Aird, did exactly everything he needed to do, put it towards a corner, headed it downward. The ball was going away.
Yeah, Koilelat's going
away
one way
from where Koilelat was going, and yet Koilelat managed to plant his right foot, extend his left arm, and I don't even think it's a parry. He basically just like claws it like a cat. Just kind of like
that's right.
Whips it with his hand off the line, and it gets cleared. And I mean, you saw Warchowski afterwards. He couldn't believe that didn't go in. And I think most of the stadium and most of the people watching couldn't believe that Koilelat just denied that incredible chance from Warchowski.
I imagine like it didn't, but I could imagine the entire crowd looking at that, and the entire stadium goes silent for a minute. Like, what? Like, how has he got to that? I mean, obviously, you'll be the first one to give credit. Fantastic delivery from Fraser Ed. So he started off the season straight, like it's like it never finished. And Warchowski does exactly what you'd expect to do, and I assume he's almost ready to celebrate. But Koilelat does, man. It's great athleticism to be able to do that, because he is going the wrong way, and it's so easy for goalies to not be able to get that foot down and move themselves, to be able to change direction of what they're doing. And absolutely fantastic save. Really, really good.
Yeah, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the match. I think it was just Cavalry trying whatever they could to create the chances to be able to get those shots on Koilelat, and that kind of also woke up Forge, and kind of put them back into the usual motion. And even though we didn't get the goal till later in the match, till the second half, it still felt like it was on a knife's edge in that first half, and I really, really enjoyed the tension in the game, because you you could feel that one goal would be enough, but it's just about who got it. And in the end, it was Mo Babuli who
Yeah.
got the goal. We were talking about that we didn't really feel like Babuli was going to add much to Forge this season. What do you know? First thing he does in the first game is get the game winner against the old enemy in Cavalry. It was a really, really good delivery from Yevremovic. I was really impressed by him throughout the game. He was going up and down the pitch well. He was connecting well with the midfield and with the forwards. I felt like, he was clearly the wing option for them. Bruno, we'll talk about in a bit, wasn't really that attacking compared
No.
to
Yeah.
Yevremovic. It was clearly that when they wanted width in the attack, it was him. And similar to Fraser Ayer, he made some really good deliveries
Yeah.
into that box, and obviously exemplified by the goal. But overall, like even defensively, I thought that he was solid and gelled well with the back line in Forge. But yeah, Mo Babuli gets the goal and kind of saves the blushes of his former York United teammate and Brian Wright, because Brian Wright also had a really good opportunity to score, did everything correct, similar to Wachowski, beat his defender by cutting inside from the left, or rather cutting outside from the left. And when it was 1-on-1 with Carducci, tried to chip Carducci. It was actually a pretty good attempt, but just went wide
Yeah.
of the side netting. But in the end, Forge got that goal and kind of highlighted why they're still one of the best, if not the best, team in the league.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're not expecting a Babuli header of all things to come through. You can expect a set piece or finding a little bit of space on the edge of the box and curling one in. But it was one of those moments where, I mean, neither of us are fans of Cavalry, but we enjoy them. But I can imagine fans of Cavalry at that moment just going, "Oh God, I wish Dan Klump was there," because I think there was still there's a partnership to be formed at centre back, but that link in the midfield, like I mean, you've mentioned you mentioned to me earlier, like Mironjuk he's got back in. He's a young player, obviously, but he's tried to come back. The two centre backs that are there, but no one's picking him up. Like absolutely no one's picking him up, and Babuli's not going to win a header if it's contested against a big centre back or against a defensive player. Babuli's got that chance because he's wide open, and it's great delivery, like you say. But he shouldn't have had that much time, and that was the one real big blunder. Like from the defense, I thought that they played pretty well throughout. It's difficult getting, as it was very much brought up, two left-footed centre backs can be hard to organise themselves, and they've got a partnership to make, and it was just unfortunate that they gave up such a big space to such a seasoned professional. He knows what he's doing, even if it is with his head.
I know, I agree. And I feel like when I was looking back on that goal, you can see that Bradley Camden is defending two players, and you can see in his eyes that he's panicking because he doesn't know who to go with. And Babuli cuts away right as a cross comes in, and Camden's already following the other Forge player. So that's why Babuli's all alone. But you look at, Mironjuk, and he's just watching. He's just ball watching. He's just in the box as a body, and he's not really marking anybody. He needs to, be there to help out, because clearly the defense is kind of in the state. You got to go in and make sure that everyone is marked. And yeah, it's lacking a little bit of that leadership, that organization that Dan Klump had. And it's going to be something that I think Cavalry, especially the defense, need to work on in the weeks to come.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've got the place to do it. Like, I don't think taking Dan Klump out makes these bad defenders. Field, Montgomery, Kobsa were all good defenders alongside him. It's just they've just got to create those partnerships. Like two of them have got to take control for the rest of the season, and they're good players. They can do it. It's just yeah, it's gonna. They might not be quite as formidable in this early stages as they were, but I can imagine they'll tighten up quite quickly.
Yeah. But Cavalry were thrown a lifeline pretty early on, I guess, in terms of when you would expect this to happen. In the 72nd minute, Zane Bruno, similar to Tier Walker, with a little bit of rush of blood to the head, made a very poor decision on the pitch by getting a second yellow card. The first yellow card was a very deserved yellow card, and the second yellow card was also a very deserved yellow card. The second one especially, he just runs into Sergio Camargo and just steamrolls him. It's not even a shove. It's almost like a rugby tackle through the player, and has the audacity to look confused when the referee's coming up with a yellow card.
I think that's drilled in. That's part of youth training now. The response when a foul's given, you have to look like, what?
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't matter if you nearly killed the man. You gotta be like, I barely touched him, ref. No, but it was a very, very silly challenge.
Yeah, like you say, he steamrolled him, but the problem he's had, like we've heard throughout, that Bobby Smaniotis has got him training with the team for a while. It's not like he's a brand new player fresh off he's just rocked up and they said, oh, you've got a bit of talent, let's give you a go. But at that moment he showed his inexperience, because he went in at Camargo and he realized, oh god, like if he takes one touch past me, it's just green. Like there's no one's going to stop him. So he got himself into that point where it's like, I've got to try and get the ball, because if I don't, I'll have to take him. And yeah, it was inexperience that's got him there, that he couldn't pull out, because otherwise, Cavalry would have been straight down and Camargo would have been straight down running at the box.
Yep. And so Forge had to try to hold on with 10 men after Bruno's dismissal. And if you weren't entertained by the first 72 minutes, then boy, did you get a treat in the last 15 or so, because then it just became balls to the wall, everybody forward, everyone attacked from Cavalry. And Forge were just trying to hang on for dear life. And I mean, that's the entertainment right there. It was edge of your seat stuff. There was that cross that came in. I think it was from Musi. That I think the commentator said it was Nimick, but I think it was Patton that got the head. Like it went off his head without, like he barely had anything.
Oh yeah, it was Patton. Yeah, that Koilelat reacts to.
That reacts to, because it, like, he had no idea what was going on. Hit it off his head, almost goes into the top corner. Koilelat has to go full stretch to tip it over.
That was the commentator just getting used to, like, last year it would have been Nimick at Halifax.
It's very true. But I mean, if he wasn't there, I think there was Kanika Elva at the back post that could have been there too.
Well, Nimick got a fantastic one when Musi crossed on the other side. But it was curling away. It was sort of curling in towards the far post, and Elva was there ready to head it in, and Nimick somehow just about got the top of his head to deflect it back for a corner, and like that was guaranteed. That was nailed on as an equaliser already for that coming, if he didn't quite get that little touch.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. Forge were throwing everything to hold on to this league, and it almost came undone in the 92nd minute. This is why you have to stay until the final whistle blows, because added time was a story and a movie in itself. Mihail Grasemikov, who is a former WFC2 player who I loved watching with WFC2. I thought he was great. He is known in Vancouver for having a wand of a left foot in terms of power and placement. He's very good from free kicks as well. He showed it in this match, and he showed it in this chance because the ball was cleared out towards him from a set piece scenario, and he just whips it with a volley, first time volley, drills it low, just goes through absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
Koilelat and who was it? Ashinori Jonsson, who was also in the line. Just watch it fly in,
Mm.
and instead of nestling into the side netting, which would have immediately won him the goal of the week,
Yeah.
it slams against the bar and then goes back out, and you think, okay, chance over. No, chance continues because Cavalry just kept shooting and crossing and shooting and crossing.
Mm.
Forge clearing and blocking and clearing and blocking until finally Koilelat manages to claim a cross and essentially end the game. And it felt like a drama. It felt like a TV show ending in that one,
Yeah.
where Forge managed to just hold on. And as soon as the final whistle blew, I think everyone just like exhaled
Yeah.
because they were holding in their breath for like 8 or 9 minutes in the closing stages of that match. But it goes to show with Forge and Cavalry, you gotta stick around until the very end because you never know what happens.
No. Yeah, excellent game. Great, it's a great advert for the league. Watching those two play each time.
Yeah, it was stunning. I forgot Musi had an overhead kick as well.
Of course, yeah, right in the end, just throws that in. Yeah, we've tried every other way. I'll throw the scissor kick.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's just, it was a chaotic way to end the match, but just cemented another classic between Forge and Cavalry in their already pretty full, rich history, even though it's only a 7-year-old league between the two sides. But now let's move on to the third match of the match day. This was the final match on the Saturday, and that was between Pacific FC and Valour FC. The third match being hosted on the island at Starlight Stadium, and you couldn't have asked for a better start for Pacific FC. 2-0 win, kept the clean sheet, got the goal of the season. Let's be honest.
It's up there already.
I'll be honest, unless something else happens, it's truly wondrous. I'm kind of calling it already. That is the goal of the season.
Can we go with did he mean it?
Well, here's the thing. Afterwards, when he was talking on the One Soccer broadcast, he was talking to Alex Gonge-Ruzek, friend of the show.
Yeah.
And he was telling me afterwards when we were at the Vancouver game that he loved Ronan Kratt's energy and his confidence because he asked him the same thing. Did he mean it? And Ronan Kratt was like, of course I meant it. What are you talking about? And it was just a little bit of that cockiness, a little bit of that confidence that, is endearing and it makes you very quickly a fan favorite for your club. And you could see that kind of attitude. He had that throughout the match. And I mean, the audacity to try that in the first place, to hit, even if it is a cross, even if you are trying to cross, the audacity to hit that first time after that long diagonal is crazy. Like, you have to have a lot of confidence in yourself and your ability to do that. And then the fact that he scored is just another level for them. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Obviously, that was the big moment, but let's talk about the game from the start. Pacific in that first half. I mean, really, the game was Pacific in that first half. It was mostly Pacific. They were doing really, really well. I was interested to see how they would be able to work out those new additions into a formation that works. Because remember, I was talking about the fact that still, for me, Pacific didn't have a number 9 that was going to get goals for them.
One, the Mexican guys, and I forget.
The Mexican youth player that hasn't played one professional game.
Yeah, only out and out striker they've got on the books.
Exactly, and they employed Josh Hurd to be the number 9, and it's something that I had been told about beforehand, that Pacific are trying out Josh Hurd at striker, but I didn't really believe it until I saw it. And I was like, okay, very interesting. He's doesn't strike me as a profile to play a striker, but if James Merriman thinks it'll work, then let's see. And to be fair, I think he did a pretty good job. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's because maybe the defenders around him weren't great, and we will
Mm.
talk about that later. But
Yeah.
he just really worked hard to spin defenders, to fight with defenders, the center backs, and to get the ball and to be able to distribute it. And his hold up play was pretty good. I was actually quite surprised by how well he played and how well he kind of allowed everyone else to play well and get into the attack. Sanata, I was also impressed about. It seems
Good
like
start.
he's
Yeah.
really taken the form from the end of last season when
Yeah.
he started to get into the goals and kept that confidence going into that. Ronan Kratt, as we talked about, looked great. Marco Bustos, a player that a
Yeah.
lot of people were excited to see, very quickly started to show why everyone's so happy that he's back and why, he's that quality that people were raving about it when he left the league. And just overall, Pacific's attack and midfield, to be fair as well, just look well oiled. It
Mm.
felt like, last season sometimes it felt like they didn't have ideas. They were trying to figure out as they went. But this time, this game, it really felt like Pacific knew what they wanted to do, knew how to do it, and it was just about who was going to get on the end of the cross or the end of the pass to
Mm.
put it all away.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you bring up Bustos, like throwing him into that midfield, and I thought Browning, Lagerfeld, and Young provide that great little sort of engine room. These hard working, they'll do a lot off the ball, but it gives him the chance to do something more. Like you've got someone who can do something special. Like Stephen Yates did a great job for them last year, like as much as he could, but they didn't. They lost an Aparicio with the quality on the ball. And now they've got Bustos back. It's going to be really huge for them. Hurd, yeah, like you say, like completely echo that. His hard work is going to be what really frustrates defenders, and if that can continue against better performing players on the day, that will really help. It does look like they're set up a little bit better for what they've experienced over these last couple of years under James Merriman. Like the highs and the lows of it, they've seemed to have picked out what they could go forward with rather than hoping to stick to a certain philosophy. They've seemed to have adapted to how things have happened. Changes have been made, players lost. They've identified what they kind of want to be. And it's going to be quite interesting to see how they keep going, because even the players coming on did a great job for them. Like Kashevars did great when he came on in the midfield, and looking forward to seeing how Tule gets on. Tule, I can never pronounce his name, but another forward player coming in. Obviously, he got from what was it? Team that beat Halifax in the champion in the
CS Outremont, I think it was.
So we'll see how he steps up and gets involved, and they just look like a little bit more of a more all action kind of team. And one of the biggest telling points of how this was a much better performance from them compared to a lot of last year was that more than 50% of their shots were actually on target for a change. Usually we're looking at 11 shots, 1 on target. Last year this was 11 shots, 6 on target. So they were actually creating better opportunities for each other in this game. And some of this could be Valor's fault, but I think let's give them credit for the work they've done in that opening day.
Yeah, of course. It just felt like everyone bought into it. Caden Chung slaughtered right back in and defensively showed why he was one of the best, fullbacks in the league not that long ago. I was thoroughly impressed with him. I think he got the most tackles in the game.
I really,
and Max Anchor as well, a young
really
keeper.
Good, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, just had a solid debut, was fearless, came out for crosses, collected them.
That ball, sorry, thinking when he collected it and just plays that long pass forward. I can't remember who he
wow.
faced, but just in an instant, like
It's class. It's class. And this thing is like, again, another Whitecaps boy. I've been able to see him up close. He is capable of that.
Yeah.
And the best part is that he's not afraid to do it. And I think when you have a keeper, one of the biggest traits you want for a keeper is for them to be fearless.
Mm.
And Max Anchor is that kind of keeper, that he is fearless. He is brave. He will come out and with a giant cluster of players and still be the first one to claim or punch away. He'll have the confidence to try to do that long kick forward that you only see usually like Allison Becker for Liverpool do. And he's still such a young keeper. He's only 20 years old. 20 years old.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, I mean, yeah, Pacific have another really good young keeper this year to replace their old one that they sold on. And wouldn't be surprised if they collect another Golden Glove award from him at the end of this one.
Sean Melvin was sat at home watching that game. Oh, damn it! Why did I get injured for this match? I've got a whole year on the bench now.
Yep, that's how the cookie doth crumble.
Yeah.
But Mike, we've put it off long enough. Now let's talk about
Luckily, I'm a big fan of Pacific as well. So
yeah, at least you had some solace from the game in this one. But yeah, Valour. Where do we start? I was actually told before the Vancouver match by Laura Armstrong that she went to a couple of the games from Valour in preseason, and she said that they look super sharp and they look raring and ready to go, and that she was super surprised that they played so poorly. And
as well.
Exactly. And it feels like it's a performance where you look at it and say, what can we do? Like, obviously there's a million things you can do better, but like, from where do you start, kind of thing. It didn't help that Phil Dos Santos, wasn't on the touchline and won't be on the touchline for a couple more matches, but it was beyond just his absence. It felt like the team just weren't on it from the first whistle.
No, and it's not like anything's particularly changed. They were set up in the same way. You kind of you looked at that team and thought, okay, well, it's going to continue from last year. Like, they're going to put in the effort. They're going to go and press. They're going to make things difficult, and they're going to give it a go. It's probably not going to be consistent, but at least they're going to be throwing themselves in on like what they want to be, which is what they were doing last year, which gave them glimmers of hope of the of some playoff football last year. But it just wasn't there. It was really disappointing. It was hard watching Kian Williams. Like, he's just come back, so like, such a long time out of football. Like, he needs time to get up to speed. Like you say, they may have looked sharp in pre-season, but it's not competitive football. So Kian Williams is going to take time, and hopefully we'll get back to seeing the best of him. But Twadek found it hard to get involved in anything. Ferreira as well on the other side, and you need your wide players in this system, because they were giving Sean Hundle and Kian Williams barely anything, and Sean Hundle, he's the kind of player who will continue to wait for that opportunity. That appears to be his role. Like, not to like take anything away from him, he's told to wait, be that 9 in the box, don't go roaming, don't go and try and do anything else, and he continues to do it and just looks frustrated, and like, and he's almost just a bystander in the game for so long. It's really difficult. But I mean, I think the biggest thing, two big things. Temi Antonoglu couldn't get in the game either. Like, he was struggling to like really like stamp his foot on that side of the pitch. And again, you've got to throw you already have, but again, throw credit onto like Caden Chung. Because as the ball's getting forward, and the two centre midfielders who are covering in front of the defence, moving across when he's getting forward, great work from Pacific to make it difficult for him. But I mean, should we talk about Fashionary?
Yeah, that man first of all, what was he thinking? And then second of all, how did he get away with it?
What was he thinking twice?
Yes, true. Not even just once. He said, I got away with it once,
what
I
was
can
the
get
ref
away with it
watching?
again.
So he's thinking, he's just shoved him over. Oh, we're still playing. All right. Okay. The refs missed that one. And then a little while later, he's done it exactly again. It's like, okay, so this is allowed now, is it?
Yeah, I don't understand what the referee was doing there. Literally 2 hands just shoved them aside. A referee looked at it and said, that's legal play on. Facineri shouldn't have stayed on the pitch.
No.
Like, he just plain and simple with those 2 chances. He should have been like Tier Walker, like Bruno, given his marching orders. How he stayed on is beyond me. But it's that, and I think we talked about it too, it's the mentality the Valour need that is lacking. I think it's that composure, because it's those moments where, like, either you panic or you get frustrated and there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between you and the team, because you start to, do things that you shouldn't do, that are out of the system, that are out of the structure. It's beyond what is expected of you and demanded of you. And then there's where things start to fall apart. And Facineri, we're clowning on him because it was just blatant. But it wasn't just him. It was a lot of the players in Valour. But it just, a bunch of them exemplified of the, whenever, they start to lose kind of the momentum, whenever, Pacific start to grow into it, they start to get frustrated because of, the blocks and the tackles and deceptions. It just kind of felt like they start to break down, and they didn't really have answers to the questions that Pacific were asking.
No.
And there's where you, again, like, for me, that's not an individual player thing. That's a mentality thing. That's a collective. Okay, it's not working. Let's settle down and let's try something else.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like Valour were doing that at all in that game. And it wasn't until late in the game where they started to get a little bit of, joy, and with crossing the balls in. And there's where they looked at the most dangerous. But beyond that, it was like, it didn't work in the first 10 minutes. It stopped working for the next 70.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'd say, like, picking on Sean Hundle, but like you say, they continue to do the same thing and it's not working. They continue to do the same thing, it's not working. And then little bit of good play comes after the changes are made, like getting him Rizal back on, getting him on the pitch, quality on the ball, which they were lacking. I think Twadek and Faria were poor with their delivery. Like, once they were on the ball, what they were doing with it wasn't great. You get someone like Rizal has got the ability to do something with the ball. I think he's good. Like, he needs to play much more for this team. But you've got, like, Javonte Lane had the best chance for them, and you're throwing in some young players in there to throw it, like, who aren't set on, I'm having to do this. They're just fighting for a place and they want minutes, and that's what kind of showed that the difference makers were the ones that were desperate to get on the pitch, not the ones that were following what they need to do. So I think there's still some work to do where they need to realize the better bits of what happened last season were because of certain things, and a lot of it was down to their just sort of grit and hard work. It's not so much about, it wasn't that they were tactically superior to anyone, it was just the fact that they were going to fight more, which got them some of those points towards the end of the season. We'll see if they can we'll see if we can find it, because they've got a better squad this year. They look like they're ready to be a bit better than they were last year, but they didn't play like it.
No, they didn't. And I'm curious to see how the Portuguese trio will work, of Rezuc, Venachao, and Figueiredo, because they're all Portuguese. You expect some chemistry of them, and if those 3 players can connect well, they can be that kind of basis for Valour to kind of build off of and start to perform better. But outside of that, I mean, it's just, for me, it's okay, Valour, you're valoring right now. Can you show me anything different? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing for them moving forward, is to kind of break that mold and show that they can rise above, where they have been the last, I was going to say few seasons. They're pretty much their entirety of their history, but
Yeah.
uh, I digress. But like, show that you can be a team that can compete with the best teams in the league, and it's only match one. It's only game
Yeah,
one. Still
exactly.
27 more games to go, so there's still a lot of time
They're not on the
for
road
them.
for 8 weeks as well, so
That's true. They're already
um,
having better situation than first year
yeah, they were
or
much
last year.
better at home. Like they've got the opportunity to learn from this. I hope they do. You've got players on that pitch that can put the ball in the back of the net, but I think they need to work out what they're doing. Like obviously, Toilet was more of a right back last year because he is kind of a one-dimensional winger. He is going to get to the byline and cross it. It's not like he's a cut inside and do different things kind of player. So they need to work out what they're doing around the pitch so that they can get the best out of that. Because otherwise, if he's got one who's going down the wing and one that's just going down the wing, all of a sudden their wingers are very obvious. We'll just keep them wide. They can't cross.
Exactly. They need to, like I said, figure out a way to, adapt and improvise that is useful and effective, and not based and not coming from anger or frustration or apathy or something like that. Like, they need to be, and they have to do it collectively as a team. They need a plan B or C or D or whatever, because that's what the best teams do. Is they manage to break down low blocks. They manage to bypass high presses because they're able to adapt and change, and they do it together as a team. And I think that's the biggest thing for Phil Dos Santos, even though he's not going to be in the sidelines, but in training, for him to try to work on with his team moving forward this season.
And if they're going to get angry, do it in the right way. Like, don't just do like silly, petulant little things. Just like grab each other and force each other to be better. Like, yeah, if you're going to get whingy and angry all the time, then use it for good. Like, work out how to use that if that's what you got.
Very true. Very, very true. We'll see if they can do that in the weeks to come. But now let's move on to the fourth and final game of match day one, and that was Vancouver FC against York. That was a match that I was able to go to, though I will be honest, I almost didn't go to because of the weather. It was horrid weather in Vancouver, which was terrible because literally the day before it was like sun shining and like everything was beautiful. And then come game day, it was just pouring rain. I barely
As
could
Vancouver
see.
start walking towards the stadium, the heavens open.
Genuinely, because oh my days, just even driving to the stadium, I could barely see 3 meters in front of me through all the spray and the haze and the rain. But I did get there, and I got to watch the game, and it was at the very least an entertaining game because it ended with York as 2-0 winners. Similar to Pacific, they kept a clean sheet. They scored 2 goals. Only difference is they did it away from home, and they started the season off strong, not in York. And it kind of calls back to York from a couple seasons ago when they were better away from home.
Just hated being at home, didn't they?
So it's it's another great result for York and another disappointing one for Vancouver. But let's talk about the winners in York first, because they, similar to Pacific, put on a really good game for pretty much 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I would say they were the top team for most of the game, if not all of the game. And if it wasn't for, Callum Irving doing Callum Irving things,
We can copy and paste that in again from last year, isn't it?
Genuinely. If it wasn't for Callum Irving being Callum Irving, it could have been 2-3-0 up in the half.
Yeah.
That's how well they were playing. And again, what I really liked about this game beforehand is that both teams came in with big question marks around them.
Yeah.
Vancouver FC lost a lot of their talent, brought in a lot of youth, a couple of good pieces to add in Terran Campbell and Dana Luke, while York United had a new head coach and were looking to go in a new direction after, Benjamin Mora left. And so when you look at both teams, and we talked about this in our preview, we really didn't know what to make of them and
No.
how things were going to go. So for York to play as well as they did, it's a huge morale boost, not only for the team, but I think for Eustakio as well. And I think York did a really good job in the offseason bringing in pieces that work well together, but bring something different.
Yeah.
Because they brought in a lot of CPL tried and true players, Adonijah Reeds, Stefan Yates, Massimo Ferrin. It just felt like they were able to do what they were doing for the other clubs, but then for York together getting the best out of them. And I really appreciate that of York.
Yeah, I think like it's big to highlight the different why we were not sure what these teams would bring was like Vancouver, like this whole squad setup, like we're just looking at it going like, have you got the players? Like they quite clearly didn't. Because they are relying on Callum Irving again, and poor guy's 32. He's not going to. Can't expect another 10 years of this. So Vancouver have got I mean, we'll talk about them consistently for this, I'm sure, throughout the season. But York was a big question, just because we were curious more than we were. Like, there was no worry about them so much. It's just more we're not sure what to expect from them, because we can see these players, and like we were chatting about what we can expect, and they don't have that focal nine, kind of similar to what we were just saying about Pacific. Adonijah Reed isn't a big bustling centre forward, but the movement around it was fantastic. Yeah, like Massimo Ferrin's finding space, he's getting shots away. You've got players moving around that occupy defenders. Midfielders are pushing forward and filling those spaces and doing those third man runs to get beyond them. And York and Vancouver had no way of dealing with it so often. And it was evident that in the first half, you could see that Vancouver were really struggling because they weren't even keeping up. And it's just the first half of the first game. You can't just keep up with the runs. And they were giving up, and they just looked like they were being run ragged in the first half, and that was really concerning. I think that you have to look at it because they've got their first 11 out. Beyond that, it's young players who are new, they're green, they don't know. they're learning on the job, like, so they're going to make mistakes, and you can't begrudge them that. like I say, they're learning on the job. So that's the biggest worry for Vancouver, but York really just took advantage of it.
Yeah. It sort of felt like watching the match that York smelt blood in the water early.
Yeah.
And then just went at it. They just went at it, and they knew who to target. They knew what spaces were going to be open for them to exploit, and they just recognized where success is, and they were able to do it. And like I said, if it wasn't for Callum Irving, I think he made 6 or 7 saves inside the first half alone. I think he only made 1 or 2 in the second half, but 6 or 7 saves in the first half alone. If you include the 2 goals, which we'll get to from Julian Altobelli, there was 10 shots on target for York, and about 4 or 5 of them should have been goals.
Yeah,
that's just not good enough from Vancouver FC. But to York's credit, they created those chances. And that's something that I think York United have struggled with at times in the past under Martin Nash, like before Benjamin Mora, and even sometimes during Benjamin Mora, is creating those chances. The fact that they were able to create those chances time and time again, I think, it shows how strong York's attack can be when they start to play like they did, which similar to Halifax in their game. they were starting to do rotations and move around and cover each other's space. And Elijah Reed was able to float. Massimo Ferrin, like you mentioned, was able to go wide and then cut in. And Gabby Batar, I think it was a rather quiet game for Gabby. I don't think he was as influential as, let's say, a Ferrin or a Reed. Still was there helping to keep it ticking. That's the kind of York United that I think fans will want to see, because it's not just playing football. They're playing football well, and they're playing football in a way that's entertaining, and it's effective. And for if I was a fan, that's what I want to see from my team. You can't always win, and you can't always get the goals when there's a goalie that's consistently standing on his head. But as long as you keep doing it, as long as you keep playing that way, you'll be able to find some success. And I think York United did really well at that.
Yeah, 100%. And like, as much as like it's like he was getting them out and they're playing something fun and it was 0-0, but you could see that they were the ones that were pushing. He made the right calls on the changes. Like his changes won in the game. Like, and as a manager, like if you're doing that and you're identifying where you could get something, where things aren't quite working, it's going well, but it's not quite working. What kind of tweak can we make? And he did it. Like, I mean, the first goal was set up by Gmo?
Yeah, it was Gmo to Altobelli. There's no better feeling as a coach, even for myself at the amateur level. There's no better feeling as a coach than when you throw on a couple of players and they immediately make an impact. And then you're sat there patting yourself on the back, be like, see, this is why I'm a coach. This is why I'm a coach. This is why I'm the coach. It was great from Eustachio. He got the substitutions right, and what a return from Julian Altobelli.
Brilliant finishes as well.
Brilliant finishes. The first one, just like, again, similar to Rodriguez, in those moments, you will have players that panic and don't get good connection on the ball, and they sky it and yada yada. But Altobelli sees that half chance, knows he has to react quickly, and thunders it into the roof of the net. Doesn't give Callum Irving any chance. That's the sign of a great striker, and that's a sign of a mature striker, which I think will be great for him, because it kind of caps off a full circle moment.
Yeah.
In this game, he was sort of, I forget if he was drafted in or if he was just signed.
Yeah, I don't remember now.
For York United back when it was York 9.
Yeah.
And he was just, I think he said he was just 17. And he had no experience. He didn't know what the standard was. He didn't understand really what was asked of him. And he had to essentially kind of take a step back, go back to TFC Academy, go back to TFC 2, and then work his way up back again from there. And now he returns to York, this time as a more mature, experienced striker, and then has an incredible debut with the brace. And as good as the first goal was, the second goal was stunning.
Yeah.
That's an elite finish. That's the kind of finish that you see, in the top 5 leagues. A tight angle, they do really well to capitalize on the mistake. And he just curls it around Callum Irving, then brings it back around to nestle into the side netting with pace and power and accuracy. Seeing it live, I had to blink, because I was like, whoa, that was an insane finish. And we were all at the press box. We're just kind of in awe that, this youngster kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then just put in 2 brilliant goals to give York the win.
And all of a sudden you got people fighting for places, like, immediately. Like, and like what we just said about Pacific, we'll see what they do when they come up against the stronger team. Will the same goes for York. Because they were great. Like, and like you say, Batar was a little bit quieter than the others, but still good. Like, that whole rotation between the front three of finding space and providing opportunities for others coming forward was great to see. In some games that will pay off and find goals, but knowing you've got a different option as well, it can be completely rotated. Like, and all of a sudden you become a whole new threat. And if that's what's going to be, if this is the footprint for what is to come for York United, then they've got a really great chance to be able to go, right, okay, well, we can adapt in game to each opponent that we come up against with a very different approach.
Exactly. And I think that for York, this will just be the start of this, like this movement that they're having under Eustachio. It'll give them that confidence to kick on when they start to face harder opponents. It's sometimes you need that easy game, to kind of
the cobwebs of pre-season.
exactly, and ease you back into the game. And now they'll be able to be sharp. And like you mentioned, I think Altobelli has very firmly stated his case that he deserves to be starting.
Yeah.
So who do you drop from the starting lineup?
Or is he a finisher? Like they've now got that chance to go, right, you're a starter, you're a finisher, or we can rotate this depending on the player, the team we're playing. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they manage that. But we've thrown a load of praise at them, rightly so. But would it have been different if that penalty call was actually a penalty?
Yeah, that one was. I was kind of as surprised as Vacchinari, though it wasn't as blatant as Vacchinari's. It was still
not as like he didn't literally just push him, but it was a barge in the back. That was a penalty in my eyes. Like that was I don't want to allow Vancouver to go, well, we could have had that, and if that was given, then we would have been fine because they didn't play well. They didn't play well at all. But they should have had the opportunity to take the lead.
Yeah. And from then after that, it all just kind of started to unravel for Vancouver. And I mean, I can't say it wasn't expected. We were literally talking about the struggles that Vancouver were going to have, and it's just frustrating because they announced right before the game, or like a day or so before the game, that they had 5 international players that were coming into the squad that hadn't joined to that point because of visa complications.
Okay.
Which, fair enough, kind of raises the questions of why have the other teams not struggled to bring in international players in time for the season starting, but whatever. Cases are different. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But if that's the case, that you're missing 5 international players, then you and supposedly these players are going to be starters and whatever, then you have to change things up. You got to understand this is not going to be my best team, so let me be a little bit more pragmatic. I'm not saying starting a back 5 again like they did in year 1.
Yeah.
But really focus on the defensive principles, really focus on that foundation, on the basics. I mean, you're playing a 4-4-2. There's no better formation to just stick to the basics than like the default formation in football.
Yeah.
But yet it still felt like they weren't able and capable of doing that. It just felt like they checked out. And there was a thing that I even asked Afshin in the pre-match press conference. I said, many times last season you went into the game and there was a lot of great talk about how well training went and how sharp everyone was. And then the first whistle blew and it all went out the window. And then everyone just looked scared and they all looked disconnected and it all just went to trash. He sort of alluded that, this preseason was great and, it was one of the best preseasons and everyone looks ready. Didn't really answer my question. Well, this game answered my question. It hasn't really changed all that much. And even if you bring in 5 international players, I don't know unless they have really great mentalities, I don't know if they're going to be necessarily able to fix that unless each and every single one of them is on it from the first whistle. And that's half your team. Then maybe they can make that impact. But because international players, we know, in the CPL can be real, toss-ups. Sometimes you get like an Ashinori Janssen or an Alejandro Diaz. Sometimes you get like an Emmanuel Robe or a Gael Sandoval.
Yeah.
you never know what you're really going to get with these international players. Relying heavily on them to perform, and not just perform, technically on the pitch, but be able to be those, mentality monsters, those leaders on the pitch,
Yeah.
is risky to say the least. And at halftime, bless their souls, Vancouver FC, they tried to do this really cool reveal of their new star player, Nicolas Mesquita, who
Mm.
for BC people will know who he is because he played for the Whitecaps for 4 years back in their then golden era under Carl Robinson. He was a really good, solid winger for them. Now he's a bit older. I think he's 33, but still, it's like a pretty big name signing for them that hopefully will entice people to come out because they recognize the name and he was sort of a fan favorite for them. But they tried to do this like really cool reveal with the little benches in the middle of the pitch and everything, and like the music, and then he like takes off his hood, and they announced that it's Mesquita and everything, and there was about maybe 25 people that clapped because there just wasn't that many people around.
No.
And the weather obviously played a part in it, but it's also
Yeah.
it's kind of a moment of who do you think you are? Like, you need to prove yourself before you do some like big theatrical thing like that. And it's the same thing on the pitch. You need to prove yourself before you can try to go and play this kind of liquid, attacking, forward-thinking football. You need to prove yourself, and you need to work on the basics and the structure of your team. And it didn't feel like they were doing that at all. And I just have no answers for it. Like I don't know how they can improve if the answer is just relying on internationals and young players. That's going to be risky. Don't get me wrong. The young players actually were probably the most impressive players for Vancouver. Elijah Ba, who started, was their best player, I think.
Yeah, just lack of quality, wasn't it, from him? But he actually had some effort.
Yeah.
Like, which a lot of players didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah. And yeah, there was just a bit of a disconnect between him and the two strikers on where the ball should have been and where the strikers should have been. But he was the one moving forward and trying things. You have Mehdi Asusi, who was a CPL U Sports pick for them, who slotted in straight away and just played like a seasoned professional, similar to when we were talking about Perlman for Halifax. And then the substitutes that came on, Godbout, Fotzing, what's his name? Podgroni. Those three did well. They showed sparks. They showed energy. They showed why youth is important to a team.
Yeah.
But that's not enough.
No.
And it just feels like they're content with that. They're content with, let's give youth the development so we can get another Grady McDonald and we can sell on big, and then that's how we're going to make our money, and yada, 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 yada. But you need to perform on the pitch. And if these 5 internationals don't work out, what then?
Yeah, and like on that, you literally last season spoke with Ashton Gottby for one of our podcasts where you did like a big deep dive on Vancouver, and he explained that signing players from international, like from other leagues, is like internet shopping. You don't know what you're exactly going to get. So to put all that faith in all these players coming in, he's already mentioned that he's not exactly sure what he's getting. Like, he's alluded to that already. Like, there's no way of him knowing exactly how these players are going to fit in, because he knows that. He's made that very clear. And that's going to be a big issue for them. And you talk about how they've put on this show for the new player being signed. It was obviously a beat, like, people in BC, they think, oh, okay, people in Vancouver will know him, let's make a big deal about it. One of my big concerns is what companies and what football clubs can do is make a big thing about their marketing and forget about what's actually on the pitch. Like, they're doing a big thing about this, so-and-so saved you a seat, and the whole marketing thing's great, and they've got their idea of what they're doing, and fantastic. Like, and it's an engaging thing that they're doing, and it's great. But they're not thinking about what's going on the pitch at the moment. I think that's the biggest concern with Vancouver I've got, that they've got these great ideas for what they want to be, and they'll do it all in the back office. But when it comes to when it comes to the training ground and when it comes to like the actual games, they're still not sure what they are, and that part is almost a second thought to them at the moment, because they didn't get the crowds in early on. They brought in a load of BC boys last year, and that didn't get the crowds back in. So now they're just going, right, let's focus on our marketing. And all of a sudden it's like, no, just make the team better. And people might come if the team's better.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that was a complaint that I had last season. It seems like it's going to be one that continues into this season. Again, unless the internationals that they signed show up and just change the game and become world beaters, then fair enough. I'll eat a slice of humble pie. I'll say that it was a masterstroke and yada yada yada. But until I see that, my concerns are there and my questions are there, and I think they're very valid. And yeah, I don't know, because even when you look at the two biggest stars in the team are the two strikers. You got Alejandro Diaz and you got Terran Campbell. Literally the two leading scorers, the two strikers that, won the league in 2021 with Pacific in one of the best teams that the CPL has seen. Like, these guys are them for Vancouver. They were passengers in that game.
Yeah.
They couldn't work well together. They didn't have that chemistry that you thought they would have. They didn't have that connection. And even Afshin Gopi, after the match, acknowledged it. He said, there was questions about whether those two can play together in preseason. They haven't really answered that today because they just weren't good enough. And I agree with him. And I appreciate that he was, very candid about his analysis of it, because they weren't. And when your two top strikers, who are supposed to be the two top strikers in the league, aren't playing well and aren't connecting well, well, then what hope do you have of scoring goals?
Exactly.
And getting into games and winning games? It just feels like there's more concern about things around the club than there is about what's on the pitch. More concern about the long-term vision of this club, which is very important. And I like what they're doing in terms of, developing and cultivating Canadian youth talent and selling them on to kickstart the careers. I think that's vital. It's one of the biggest reasons why we have this league. So I really like that long-term vision. But in the short term, what are you doing?
Yeah, they need, those young players need opportunities as well. Like, it's not, I mean, you can throw any player out there, and if they've not got leaders on the pitch, if they've not got guidance on the pitch, they'll go get better, and they're not going to be sellable, and they're not going to have great careers. So you need something around them. You can't just throw on 11 kids. You can't just throw on 6 kids with 5 players who don't care. Like, it's got to be. There has to be a plan, which they don't have. Like, and they just didn't show the commitment in that game. Like, the players, those that are meant to lead it, always has an asterisk of Callum Irving did all he could. So we're only ever.
That is the one man that is never at fault. He is never at fault. That man is just trying to survive in the back.
But the 10 outfield players, all of those that were senior players, were poor. And the defense didn't engage. The midfield gave up, and the forwards didn't get into the game. And that was that. And what do you do with that? You can't throw on a young player and go change it. You can't throw on a young player and go, yeah, like they're playing terrible, but maybe you with them might make them do better. Like, I don't get what the thought isn't there. It's all very much in theory and nothing in practice.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of par for the course right now. Vancouver FC,
enjoy this weekend, week out, mate.
Yeah. You really know how to pick them, huh? Don't we?
You'll see 7 other group teams that might be fun.
Yeah. But anyways, enough ranting about Vancouver FC. I think it's gone on long enough. Let's close this episode out now. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope that you are as excited for the return of the CPL as we are. I hope you are as passionate about it as we have been in this episode. And we hope that you stick around throughout the season as we bring you more and more content. Make sure to follow us once again on all of our socials at Coast to Coast FC so you can give us all your thoughts on this week's episodes and the games. We would love to hear your thoughts on everything that we discussed in today's episode and all of the episodes to come. But until next time, I'm Felipe Vallejo.
And I'm Mike Rice.
And this has been Coast to Coast FC, signing out.